right. Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? Looks like we are. It looks like. It looks like we are live. So this is Happy Valley Hobbies. I am Mr. Katie, and I am sharing hobbies that make me happy. And looks like everything is up and running. Let's put this over here. Let the computer do its thing. Got that over there. Make this live like that. All right. So, well, I'm going to have to say it's been a very interesting week. Last Friday, where my current workplace is set up where we do 10-hour shifts on the 10-hour shifts per day, with Friday being a technically part of the weekend, but right now we are on mandatory overtime, which may end soon or next week. Let's double check time wise. Yes, this might be the last mandatory overtime week. Don't know. I'll find out soon enough. But on the 18th, I wound up going to a local. I think it's a museum. It's either a museum or a historical society for. Let's see, go that way. It's basically set up for, it's the summer home of the second president of the Pullman Car Company. It's called the Haldane. It was originally built in 1905. And it stayed with the family until 1975. And then I guess the local people decided to make a historical society because they didn't want the building to wind up being cut up for apartments and stuff like that. So they wound up restoring it back to when it was back in 1905. Well, I don't think 1905, but maybe that era. Apparently, because they wound up keeping all the furnishings and all the original books and all that of the former Pullman president. And the horse barn has been converted into the welcoming center, where where you go in, and right now you go in and that's where you buy your tickets. Normally the tickets would be bought when you start to park, where the parking is and all that, but that building right now is closed, so you have to go into the main gift shop, basically, of the Hildine. And I wound up after exploring the place, they actually, on the property, they have one of 6, apparently, wooden Pullman cars. Normally the Pullman cars would get destroyed or or sold off for things and all that. And there's only 6 that are left that are all wood. It's called the Pullman car is called the Sunbeam. They completely restored it back to its 1888 opulence. All except for one section. There's one section on outside of the car where they didn't completely cover where the wood is and all that, and so you see a section of the actual internal framing of how the car is put together, which is, in my opinion, sort of kind of on the neat side. But unfortunately, the car, it couldn't go inside the car itself because of it hasn't been I guess cleared for public use yet because of the pandemic. But I get the impression that as soon as more and more things loosen up and all that, eventually you'll be able to walk through the car. What you can see through the windows and all that is still pretty impressive. But it probably would give a better, even more impressive, actually going on the inside and looking at the stuff. I mean, especially with all the manufactured embroidered pillows and etc. I would have to say that's probably very, very interesting in how that is set up. Well, hello there, Rail Artist, and how are you this evening? Thank you for showing up. I'm not sure how much you caught of me talking about the Haldane that's in Manchester, Vermont, which is a local museum, which is was originally built as a summer home for the second president of the Pullman Car Company. And the interesting thing is that he is not, George Pullman is obviously a lot more famous as presidents of companies go, of the Pullman Company, but also this guy's father was also a lot more famous than even George was, because the second president of the Pullman Car Company, his name is Robert Todd Lincoln. Yes, that Lincoln. His father was Abraham Lincoln. He was the only child of Abraham and Mary Lincoln to survive to childhood. Oh, okay. That's one of the things that I grabbed the snack before. I've learned to grab either a snack before doing the live stream or starve until afterwards. But that's okay. I mean, it's one of those things that's why I grabbed this particular time slot because it was after. I'm trying to think who was now. It was after Joe Tedesco, but before Third Rail Thursday. It was sort of like the only thing that was sort of available in between the times. But while I was there, I mean, it's a very large estate. It's actually still a working farm. Robert Todd Lincoln was what they call a gentleman's farmer. So they did have stuff it was a working farm, but it was not really a mess. It was more of, I guess today we would call well, in beer process it'd be a microbrewery. But then they at that time they called it, I think it was called a gentleman's farm. They raised sheep, cow, but I mean at a very, very small experimental scale. Well, hello there, Anthony. Thank you for coming in. Um, as I was explaining to rail artists, one of the things that I went last Friday to a local museum, which was the Hildene, um, which was a the summer home for the second president of the Pullman Car Company, um, Robert Todd Lincoln. And yes, that the son of that Lincoln. Um, and the interesting thing is, it's a very uh, they restored it to they restored the building as it was built in like 1905. That's when it was originally built. Um, and it has it's still it was a gentleman's, what they call the gentleman's farm, which has been still which is actually still being run as a farm, but it's more of like sort of like well, now you have these microbreweries that make these special runs and all that, and I guess that's what the farm is. But basically, yes, they're a farm, but they're not, they are more on quality, not mass production. I drove by past the lower section on it, and I think they had a bunch of alpacas, which I don't think was 1905 accurate, but there were alpacas and sheep and cows and etc. But one of the interesting things that I wound up buying at the gift shop, and let me switch over to a different camera. All right, there's my workbench camera. All right, now we'll transition over to the camera. Um, this particular book called Rising from the Rails. I have not looked at it yet, mainly because I haven't had the ambition to do so, but I am planning on reading this. But apparently, the Pullman porter was actually the highest paid job that I guess blacks could get at the time in the 18th century. But the interesting thing is that even though it was like the very highest paying job that they had, well, actually, they got pictures in here, but they had stairs to go by, but as you can see, they were sort of like in a very a lot of the things that they had was very, very cramped conditions. There's a picture of Robert Todd Lincoln right there. A picture of George Pullman himself. But the interesting thing is with the porters is that while everyone else in the car was living in sort of kind of the lap of luxury, the porters were usually in the small portion of the car. I don't know if they actually show pictures. They actually show pictures of the normal accommodations of everybody else, but I don't see. As I said, I haven't really looked at this book yet, so it's like I'm not sure what kind of book that's called or style of book, where they have a lot of text and all the pictures are sort of like in the middle, and then they're surrounded by text and all that. I'm not sure what that is called, but I have a lot of reading ahead of me. And let's see. I mean, there is the possibility with taking original quotes and all that, some of the language possibly might be a little, well, I would assume that some of the, some of the language in here is a little, well, dated. But then again, this is also the time of, when the porters were, the Pullman porter became a thing. And I was surprised to learn that Pullman actually started just after the Civil War. It was just during or just before the Civil War that Pullman became a started their Pullman Palace cars. And well, I get the impression that George Pullman, turned around and, I don't want to say did his best, but did his exploited the freemen, because they were looking for jobs, and he enabled black men to travel the country and all that, but they were usually in a very their personal areas were, I want to say, about the size of bathrooms. But I guess there was a lot of prestige in as being a Pullman porter. But let's see, a lively and engaging chronicle that adds yet another dimension to the historical record, the Boston Globe. But, it is sort of, there are some things that I'm sort of kind of curious about. Excuse me. I know that Pullmans seem to be all standard gauge equipment, but it'd be interesting to find out if they make any other style of rail cars, if they were either broad gauge or narrow gauge. That I don't know, and hopefully I'll eventually find that out. Right now I'm assuming everything is standard gauge because it was basically to take advantage of the long trains. Most of the intercontinental trains and all that. But it should be an interesting read. On what I wound up doing on Saturday, because the North Country trains. Oh, hello, Jerry. Didn't see you. As I said before, I don't have my monitor set up greatly for changing between cameras and all that. Ugh. So let's say we switch back to, there we go. Switch back to the laptop setup. There we go. Yeah, on Saturday I went to a train show, and it was a relatively small one. It was up in St. Albans. I guess one of the last ones that are still done in Vermont. I guess Vermont used to have 3 before the pandemic, but only one has survived. Basically, I only bought one thing, which is a It's a model of the Sierra number 3. This is undecorated. I have now 5 variations. The idea is to eventually, once I get enough, be able to turn around and fiddle around with them to, make different ones. One of the things I am thinking on doing is, once I get, trying to think now. Once I get confident enough, one of the things I want to see about doing with this style is to go from a 10-wheeler to an 8-wheeler. Basically removing the front driver and also cutting off a course out of here, and also reducing the front here so it's more of the wood burning style instead of the coal burning style. Uh-oh. Looks like Anthony has to change computers. Someone forgot to plug in their computer. But that's what, and it was a nice show. I saw Harrison's from North Country Trains. He was the one who told me about the show. So I met up with him. It's a 3-hour drive from my house. So that was it was actually a very nice drive. It was very interesting in how I used Google Maps to go up there, and on the way back I used Waze. Waze had me going down US 7 and then cutting across at Vermont 22A, which had a lot of farms, a lot of one right after another, and didn't really have that many towns. So it was like there wasn't that much traffic, but at the same time, when the gas gauge is hitting E, it's like, where's our gas station? Is that narrow gauge? What? The locomotive? No, it's standard gauge. That's all I have at this point in time. I am thinking of right now I'm a 10th through a deco, which is like Manpower, some of the other ones that are out there. Manpower is one of the larger ones, but it's a temp agency, and from my understanding is that I guess I'm doing a decent job, and there is a thought process of becoming a full-time employee, but I'm not quite sure exactly. I don't know how the whole thing goes and all that, but talking to the HR person, she says as well, we have to buy you, and with that negotiation and all that, and I'm like, you need to buy me? What is this? Am I in the sort of like, is this human trafficking? Or is like, am I indentured service? Like, it just sounded so wrong. But I would have to say it's a decent company. The company is called it's called WCW Incorporated, but it's known as Natural Form. And they make mattresses, both for the medical field and hotels and etc., where there's lots of beds, but they also do what they call consumer, which are basically directly to a person, and some of the beds for consumer are they got everything from your basic small twin all the way up to they called it the Alaska King, which I guess is 9 foot by 9 foot, which a lot of people, some people at the workplace are like, why would you need a bed that large? It's like, well, it's one of those things of, if it's a family that, you got the husband and wife and you got all the kids and maybe the pets also, don't know. I mean, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at some of these beds there, and I'm like going like, wow, that's a good size layup there. But it is one of those things of right now. I have noticed at the way the sun is going with the with the spring equinox. It looks like the sun might start interfering at the beginning of the shows. I'm not quite sure how the lighting's going to be because um, right now I'm looking west, and so the sun would be basically going on me and then eventually disappearing, and then I have to try to get lighting working correctly. Something I'm still haven't figured out on. But there are some things that once I become a permanent employee, it's like going like, okay, now I feel comfortable in actually buying some stuff that I wanted for a while, but I just haven't gotten yet because it's one of those things of going like, well, I don't know if um, my income is stable or not. So once once I get transferred from a deco to WCW, then it's like one of those things that going like, all right, well, I know the situation of they're having a hard time finding people, especially ones that are reliable. Uh, they're unfortunately there seems to be a lot of they would hire somebody and they're like really enthusiastic, and then by the end of the month they're like, well, yeah, this is not for me, goodbye. The one of the things is that they was did one of the things that they did say is, well, the job is pretty boring, which that's debatable on what you define as boring. I'm transferred into shipping and receiving. So there is a routine, but at the same time, the routine is, I mean, there's some days we're just absolutely buried. And then there was like today, it's like we had me and Mike, who's my immediate boss, is like turned around. It's like at 1 o'clock, I'm like, all right, what do we do next? And he's like, well, this is done. This is done. This is done. This is done. We can't do that until tomorrow. We can't do that until tomorrow. We're waiting on this. We're saying, there is nothing for you to do. It's like, okay, and so I wound up talking to the plant manager and wound up doing helping out in the sewing room, reorganizing stuff because the new manager for that was trying to reorganize stuff, and it's like, gee, I need to do this and that, and then it's like, oh yes, somebody to sort of help me with the small little details. So I guess I'm leaving a good impression. So I guess it's going to be a job for a while at least. But I know right now is where I'm at now. It's like when I first started working there, I mean, it was cold. It's even though it's right next to the heat, the boilers that heat the place and all that. If they didn't open up the valve for the steam to go through and all that, or warm up and all that, go into work, and I would assume nothing would quote freeze, but when I want to say there's times that I think it was probably 40 degrees in the office. But and also thinking of now that how's it going to be in August, where we're going to have the exact opposite, because there is heat in the office, but there's no air conditioning. Mike, my immediate boss, is like, it does talk about, oh yeah, it's not that bad unless it's certain things and all that, where it winds up does getting warm and all that. But it's one of those things of who knows. And one of the interesting things of where I work at is that it was actually originally rail served. So there are tracks that, when you drive into the road, you see your tracks onto your right, which you can tell that they haven't been maintained, because in some cases there's almost like from the bottom of the ties to the ground is about maybe over 6 foot because of from my understanding, Hurricane Irene had basically turned around and washed everything out. So not only is there tracks that have like trees starting to grow in between the tracks, but there's places where there's the track is just like right in midair. There's another section where I think they put a power pole in between the rails, so it's like one of those things of, and also around the building they actually removed the rails, even though the loading doors are still there. There's 3 of them. They're both all 3 of them are blocked in from the inside, to sort of say, I mean, all the, like, the counterweights and everything are taken off, so it would take it would be a challenge to open up the doors. So it's one of those things of hopefully they well, actually 2 of them are behind shelving, so it's like you would have to crawl over the shelving stuff to get to the door to try to open it. But it's one of those things that, yes, the door is there, but you're not going to open it or open those doors. And those are on the south side of the building. Yes, south side of the building. The offices are on the north side. So I found out walking in after a snowstorm and all that, the front of the building takes the longest actually for the snow to melt, because it's shaded by the building. Also, I believe the building is also set up for a good portion of it has solar cells on the roof. And I think the interesting thing is the reason why it's rail served is because originally it was the Rich Lumber Company, which the rails kept on continuing up the mountain, etc., which is now part of out of a trail that was made that connects to the Antarctic Trail. The Antarctic Trail is a trail that goes from what I understand, somewhere, it basically follows the Adirondack Mountains from Georgia all the way up to, I think, Maine. I could be wrong on that. And this is the Antarctic Trail. There's the main Antarctic Trail, and then there's other trails that go off to different spots because of say if you want to go on to only a short section of the trail and all that, there's access points so you can go into it and travel a little bit and then be able to come back out. Um, but and that's the most major things that I did model train wise with over the weekend. It felt like a really long weekend, but when you just go home and do things, when you turn around and plan doing something that's out of the ordinary, it just makes things feel a little bit longer. I do think I might go to the Hildene again, because I didn't go to the goat farm. They have a goat farm. They do have a farm for goats, where they make they actually make goat cheese. And they also have, the place that makes the cheese also does, your normal cow cheese, and I forget what some of the other things I forgot. But as I said, it's a fully working farm, and the farm, I guess, helps supplement the operation of the historical society. But yeah, I would say with the Hildene, I would say look at it online, and because it's more than just even the Pullman car, the railroad aspect is not as prominent, because it's the entire, it's basically set up more for the entirety of what the Lincolns did at there. Is, not all the Lincolns had to deal with the Pullman Car Company. And the interesting thing is there's not that much information with Robert Todd Lincoln. I guess there's only been 2 or 3 bibliographies and stuff along those lines. There's not really that much on his life itself. So most of the stuff in the gift shop is, of course, around his father, Abraham, and obviously in some cases the Civil War and etc. So there's not that much. There isn't as much railroad stuff there, but there are some things that are very interesting. I walked into this one room, and it had a typewriter or printing press. It had, the wall was covered in these numbered and lettered drawers and stuff like that. And I'm looking at it and I was like, why does it looks like a post office? And then later on, when I read the plaque, it was like the secretary's office that did all the correspondence of not only what Robert Todd Lincoln was talking about and all that, but also be able to correspond with the Pullman Company, which was sort of interesting because of apparently he was introduced to Manchester through the Equinox Hotel, and there's I'm assuming this. I wasn't able to confirm this, but my assumption is that the Hildene itself is not on a rail line. There's one you can see the Rutland Railroad, well, what's now Vermont Railway. There is tracks that you can actually see where the railroad is, but it's not close enough to the Hildene to and there's also no road that goes directly to the railroad. So my assumption is that they wound up going to the Manchester rail station, and then I'm willing to bet they actually had a siding just for Mr. Lincoln. It's like if they turned around and said, hey, I want to be able to go to wherever and all that, probably sent a message down to the down to, well, first the Pullman Company. If they didn't, I don't know if they actually had a car sort of on standby at the rail depot, but that would be sort of kind of an interesting setup that way. But then, would obviously take it, horse and carriage, or possibly in the later years, maybe even an automobile to the depot, and then get on to the private business car, and away you went. That's my assumption, but I would have to say the people at the Hildene, they're very knowledgeable of the Lincolns and the generations that lived there. With the railroad itself, or railroad operations, not as much. I mean, the car, the Sunbeam Palace car that's there now, that's only been there for about 10 years, so it was never there when the Lincolns were. But they do have it set up where they try to recreate what it was. There are some things they had to modify to keep them working. They have what they call an Olean organ. It's a player piano, but instead of being a piano, it's a player organ. And the thing is that because of the paper rolls are very, very fragile, they don't use them anymore. So it's been modified so it can use MIDI files, and it's so the player is actually controlled by a small computer, but everything else still works. And so the keyboard and everything is, it's the size of a small player piano, and it actually looks like a player piano. But then it's like, oh no, this is an organ. And then they actually play a little bit of music and all that, and the pipes are like on the landing of the grand staircase, and it's loud. I'm thinking it's like a boombox of the 1905. I mean, it's just, you could just hear it throughout the house. But it's one of those things of, if nobody told you that's what it was, you would think it's like, gee, why is there on the staircase? Why are these two? It doesn't look like it's part of. It doesn't quite look part of the staircase. It looks like, because the staircase goes up and then crosses over and then goes up. So it the landing has like a nook in it where you can actually sit down between the organ, which it's one of those things of, that's why I was singing it's like a boombox from 1905 and all that. Instead of carrying a boombox on your side and all that, having the music blasting in your ear, you're sitting in between basically a church organ. And but then the interesting thing is that even though his father abolished slavery, he did have servants. Had a butler, and I think there was 8 bedrooms for servants. I forgot the exact number and all that. The interesting thing is that I'm not quite sure what the servants were. They didn't say if they were white, black, I doubt if they were Hispanic, but I mean, it's one of those things that they don't say what, what they didn't say that what the servants were. Right now, it's more of a uh, self-guided tour. So it's one of those things of, if you don't know how to, uh, uh, so there's a lot of times that, you can't really ask questions. All right, Hildine message. I'll actually, all right. All right, here we are. Actually throw there we go. There's the link to the Hildine, and it shows all the different things that they had. But there are places to walk around. Oh, okay, what's that? No idea what that is. But yeah, the interesting thing is that when I was talking to one of the staff that was there, right now the volunteers have not been allowed back yet. But the staff members that are there, that sort of like, you walk in there and there's one person there that says, gives a short tour and all that, and then let you go. They were saying that during the summer, they do have, they talk about the forced air heating system that it had, but it doesn't have air conditioning. 1905. I mean, even the richest person couldn't really afford air conditioning. It was more only for like the industrial level, not I would say consumer level. But it is one of those things of it's. I remember seeing some of this technology when I was younger, especially with sometimes some of the grandparent age people that that I hung out didn't really hung out with, but more my parents hang out with, and I was brought along. I never met my grandparents, but my one grandmother had a twin sister that did survive, that to where I could actually meet them. They had a house that had the same style of heating system in it, and so that sort of brought a little bit of memories of it's like what they had. I mean, they had a the kitchen had a 1923 GE monitor top refrigerator, which I'm willing to bet probably works. But they didn't have it. They didn't have it plugged in because, well, it's like you don't really want a refrigerator running when you have nothing in it. Another section there that that the kitchen had was I forgot what they're called. The thing is, they had tubes that went throughout the house and all that. And if somebody blew into a tube, one, it would whistle, but there was like a control panel that while it was whistling, it would also be flipping this flag around and all that, so you know which room that it was in. That was sort of, so like a very early, it was talking tube, so it was like an early telecommunication or intercom. Apparently there were two phones on the property. I think one was in the kitchen or the secretary's office. I forgot which. And the other one was in the stables. Not quite sure why the phone was in the stables, but that's apparently that's where they put them. And it's one of those things that sometimes, even though it's not rare, something that's not railroad related might give a different dimension to whatever you're modeling. Because I mean, sometimes 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 it's that type of detail that's left out that sometimes could add a little bit of dimension to whatever you're doing. But I mean, it's also another thing is that you could also get buried in details and research and then don't actually build anything. But it's up to you. It's sort of up to you. Do you want to go that direction, down that rabbit hole, or not? But let's see, who is on for Third Rail Thursday today, or this week, I should say. There we go. Let's see, close that away. It looks like it might be go via or go home. Let's see. Yeah, it should be go via and go home. Next week is a question mark. So I guess they, usually someone doing the fifth week can be at times a question mark because there may or may not be a fifth week. So, all right, I'm going to see about starting to wind this down. So people, if they want to go via or go home, they can. And there's other things I have to do, so I may probably not be at go via or go home. So I'm going home, which is sort of ironic because I am home. But I would have to say thank you, everyone, for watching, who decided to keep on going for this far, whether it be live or the recording. And I thank you. It's one of those things of, learning a new thing, with doing live streams and all that. I guess my next thing I need to figure out is how to do recordings, because I want to record some of the things that I have. I have things that I've recorded before I got a job, and my body is starting to get to the point where it's used to the 10-hour shifts now. And that's where I'm getting at there. Well, thank you, Anthony Dodge. Your streams are also interesting at times. I myself, I don't know that much of European trains in general. I would have to say I know useless facts at times. I know I watch the gentleman that does Rail Story. He goes into a deep dive of early railroads and stuff like that. So I like watching him. It's just that I haven't seen anyone do something uh, American style, or even I would actually even say a continental style, because he concentrates on Great Britain. But it would be also interesting in seeing some things that are uh, maybe in a uh, different countries that are around. From what I've one of his stories, they're talk about track and possibility with uh, at times. Yeah, it's one of those things of from what I've seen so far when it comes to live streams. Some live streams are like, oh my god, this is fantastic and all that. And then there's other live streams that they just don't perform, or uh maybe something happened that it's just it just doesn't feel right or off or whatever. But and that's what basically what I'm doing is just keep on keeping on, and maybe eventually I'll find out my process and all that fun stuff. So, well, it is now 7:59, so I'm going to wrap this up. Um, the world needs more love. So find your passions, add some silliness to it, and let spread the love around.